Now, I'm sure, as most of you know, I have a fun fact episode that comes out every once in a while on Life Offline. And whether there's 20 of you out there, or it's just my girlfriend watching it 19 times, you're cool. And because of that, I'm making a new page called FactSlap. Now, FactSlap will be a strictly informational page, just these fun fact type videos coming out, and until we get about 20 subscribers or so, I'll also be posting the videos here and on the new page. So until then, enjoy. Welcome to the very first edition of FactSlap, where I give you facts you can slap your friends and family with, no contact needed. Are you ready?
Grab your swords and your spears.
This is Sparta!
We're going to be talking about 300 the movie, or better known as the Battle of Thermopylae. The movie 300 was a pretty good description of what it was like in the younger Spartan life. As soon as you were born, you were brought to a council of older Spartans who would deem it if you were fit to live. If you had any kind of illness, looked sick, or had disabilities, you were just left in the wild to die. Now, if you passed that test, you would immediately be bathed in wine because they believed the weaker children would just have convulsions and die. After that, you would have to become accustomed to darkness and being left alone because when you cried and complained, nobody cared. But don't worry, because by the age of 7, it got worse. Hello, CPS? Yeah, I'd like to report the Spartans. Now, being 7 years old, you feel more like a man or woman every day, and you want to do something for your country. So you join the military, and that's a good thing because you would get forced to anyways. Divided into age groups between 7 and 17, 17 and 19, and 19 and 29, school was extremely long and harsh. Spartans believed that they were descendants of Hercules himself, and these schools definitely reflected that. Now, if you were a young male Spartan, you'd get handed off to a padnomus, which actually translates to boy herder. By the time you hit the age of 12, you were only permitted to wear one cloak, use no bathing oils, and you had to steal to survive. Damn, this kid seems pretty lucky. I don't have a cloak or any bathing oils. Now, if you were caught, you were whipped and lashed, and you were punished not because you were stealing, but because you got caught. And even then, older Spartans would spur on the younger kids to fight and prove who's the strongest, often resulting in injury. Now, after graduating from this ruthless school at the age of 19, you would meet your messmates, or the soldiers you'd be fighting along with in the military. Side slap fact. Now, Leonidas had 2 older brothers, and this was originally due to everyone thinking his mother was barren. Now, his father remarried, having a second wife, which he ended up having 2 kids with pretty quick. And then later on, the first wife he had ended up giving birth to Leonidas, making him 3rd in line for the throne. Now, in the movie 300, this is where it goes a little bit of fiction, because Leonidas is crowned king as soon as he graduates. As I said before, he has those 2 older brothers, and one was reigning as king until shortly before the Battle of Thermopylae, when Leonidas was finally crowned. After this 17-year-long workout montage we get through, we cut to a quick snippet from Delios, the great storyteller in the movie, and he says,
A beast approaches, and it was King Leonidas himself who provoked it.
Now, contrary to what happens in the movie, Delios actually ends up going home after he loses his eye, which is due to battle, not infection. But when he gets home, he's not welcomed like the great storyteller he was in the movie. He was actually shunned because him coming home was seen as retreating, and that goes against Spartan law. Now, right after this, the emissaries show up to talk to Leonidas. And there's this quick little thing at the beginning where Leonidas' wife puts in her opinion, which she has every right to do so in Spartan society.
Do not be coy or stupid, Persian. You can afford neither in Sparta.
And the emissary retorts back,
What makes this woman think she can speak among men?
Now this would have guaranteed got his ass beat. Then Leonidas and the emissary walk off to cool their heads, and they start talking about offerings of earth and water. Now this is a sign of subjugation, and Sparta is not going to do that. And then this leads in to our favorite part.
This is Sparta!
Where someone gets kicked down a well. Now, as much as I want this to be true, when the emissaries showed up to Athens, they did get put down a well. But when they showed up to Sparta, they were more likely to get beat, pummeled, tossed around, and then executed. Now, right before this, there's this quick little snippet where Leonidas looks around and ends up on his wife, and then she nods yes. Now, isn't that what we all do before something sketchy is about to happen? Kind of like... Now we meet the oracles of Delphi on Mount Parnassus, which was literally just a big hill. This area was actually found because a random goat herder was herding his sheep and they started acting funny. And he found the source of the smell, leaned over this canyon, and started hallucinating and acting very weird. Now they would use this vapors or whatever was coming out of the canyon to prophesize and do things like that, and so that's why they were at Mount Parnassus, which was just a big hill. Gotta pass them vapors so you can make them prophecies. Now, I don't know what kind of vapors were coming out of that canyon, but it must have been some good, because these prophecies were actually pretty accurate. What they told Leonidas is they would lose a nation, or they would lose a king. Now we move into a quick passion scene, and bam, we're at war. It's almost like we got shanghaied or something. The commander and Leonidas are talking. Now Leonidas makes a comment to the commander about his son. He says that he's too young to have felt a woman's warmth. This is because until the age of 29, when they graduate the military, they're not able to be with a woman in that sense. Now they can sneak around and try and get away with it, but if they get caught, the lashings were so bad, it was known to have killed a few men. So Sparta, strongest warriors you know, also 29-year-old virgins. And then the council comes out to talk to Leonidas. Basically they're like, hey buddy, what are you doing there? And he's like, oh, I'm going on a walk. These are my bodyguards. Don't worry about it, it's cool. And after a short talk with his wife, he dips out. Now, this isn't really how it happened. There was a coalition who got together and elected the Spartans the leader of this. So he already knew what he was getting into. And instead of 300, he actually ended up with a group of around 7,000 by the time he got to those hot gates. Now, true to the story, there was only 300 Spartans there, and they were on the front lines doing most of the fighting.
Spartans! What is your profession?
The other soldiers were placed in areas throughout the hot gates, like there was 1,000 soldiers just sitting on that goat path that they talk about later. Now they continue walking and they come upon a burnt city where they find a little boy as well as a footprint from one of the immortals. Now the immortals were actually given that name because they had a group of 10,000, and if someone died they would immediately replace them, giving the look that they were immortal, always having 10,000 strong. Now the word for immortal in Old Persian and follower are extremely close, and it was mistranslated, so it's actually 10,000 followers, and it was supposedly just a basic infantry unit that they had. Oh, and also, they didn't look like this. Sorry. Now we cut to the scene where the Persians are losing all the ships in the storm. Now they did lose a lot of ships, but it was actually due to the Greek fleet out there. They took out quite a heavy chunk of the Persians on the first day, and ended up completely eliminating all their battleships on the second. Now, in the movie, they think it's millions of Persians. More likely, it's actually 300,000. They had never seen this many people before, though, so it still seemed like the entire world was against them. And then the Spartans are out there rebuilding the hot gates, and the emissary shows up from Xerxes. Now they offer them a deal and everything. In real life, they did offer them some of the lands of the people who resisted, as well as to be able to retreat unharmed. Now, a lot of the Greeks actually argued for this, but it was Leonidas himself who made everybody stick together and was like, this is not going to happen. And then this jackass, Ephialtes, shows up and talks to Leonidas about joining the ranks. Now, he can't lift his arm past his shoulder, and that's not how the phalanx work. You have to protect the person next to you, exactly like he says, so he just can't do it. Ephialtes curses his name and actually sells him out later. Spoiler alert. So, that guy. Now we have a quick cut scene into the commander and Leonidas talking, and the ground starts shaking, and Leonidas is like,
Haha, battle formations.
Now the Persian army is approaching, and that one guy on the horse gets speared in the chest, and then they charge. Now everybody on the Persian side had short swords and wickered shields, so it was kind of like,
A good group of boys, we're all gonna die together out here. You shouldn't have come here.
they were really screwed. They didn't have the reach to get to the Spartans, nor did they have any protection against them. So the Spartans' heavy shields and long spears really did a good job, just like they did in the movie. Now we're on to the scene where it's raining down arrows and it blots out the sun, and everybody loses their mind on this joke about fighting in the shade. Now, no real facts about this exact part, but it could happen, so we'll give it to him. Now we have cutscene to unfactual things like the queen and the councilman. That didn't happen, and Xerxes did not actually show up to offer this deal to Leonidas. As much as the banter there is pretty funny, it didn't happen.
Consider the fate of your women. Clearly, you don't know our women. I might as well have marched them up here, judging by what I've seen.
Now we start off a super long fighting montage by going into fighting the Immortals first. They actually didn't do too much to the Spartans. I mean, I think the count of people that had passed away on the Persian side was about 10,000 by the end of the second day. All those rhinos and giant elephants also, that definitely was not happening. They did not have those. Now, true to form, Ephialtes goes and sells them out to Xerxes with that goat path. And when the Spartans learn about this, they end up losing a lot of people. They're left with only around 1,700 by the end. And then there's a cutscene where Leonidas is talking to Delios, the one who goes back and tells the story, and he tells my favorite little joke.
I trust that scratch hasn't made you useless.
Hardly, my lord. It's just an eye. God so fit to grace me with a spare.
Like I said before, they didn't welcome him like a hero. Sadly, he was seen as retreating. Now we have another scene where the queen goes in front of the council. Again, this didn't happen. Leonidas was elected to go out there. But damn, that was a good shanking. Like, cha-cha. Now the ending was actually really factual. All the Spartans were on one end of the hot gates, so you would actually only see them like you did in the movie. Xerxes does show up for that final battle, and Leonidas actually ends up getting taken out by arrows, so pretty accurate on that end. Side slap fact. Now when Leonidas passed away in the Battle of Thermopylae, he was 60 years old. It's crazy, Grandpa out there pumping iron. And the movie comes to a close with Delios standing there leading tens of thousands of Greeks into battle. And this is actually very accurate. This is the Battle of Plataea. It took place 1 year after the Battle of Thermopylae. And they said that Delios fought so hard in this, he redeemed himself from having retreated from the Battle of Thermopylae. Thanks for joining me on this episode of SlapFacts. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you like this episode, go and join our new page. It's SlapFacts, and the link will be in the description down below. Never forget, keep your fact hand strong. Later.